Okay, in part two, we're going to talk about basic property rights. When you normally purchase a property free and clear, as we say, you have certain rights that goes with it. Disposition, that means you can do anything you like with it within reason. You can buy, you can sell it, you can mortgage it, you can give it away, you can rent it out and so forth. Enjoyment means that you can enjoy it without having someone come along and actually say they own it or have an interest in it. Exclusion, you've got the right to prevent people from trespassing on your property. And even if you don't actually occupy it, you do have the right to possess it any time you want. And also you have the right to control what the property is used for and use it for anything within the zoning limitations. Deep sea, we call that. We call this whole thing estates and tenancies, the degree, quantity, nature and extent of the interest or the ownership rights. And it falls into two groups. Freehold, where you have a use or you own or you have an interest in property for an indefinite length, unknown duration. Or leasehold, when you don't have full freehold rights and it is of a fixed known duration. In other words, you either own it, and if you're not owning it, then you're probably leasing it. Freehold estate is an ownership interest for an indefinite period, unknown duration. And there are two types. Fee simple, that could be bought or inherited, and this contains the largest bundle of legal rights. And also life estate, which is usually measured by a person's lifespan. Freehold estate. Most comprehensive, fee simple, sometimes called absolute fee simple or just fee. Absolute and complete ownership can be inherited, sold or gifted, also fee or fee simple absolute. Power to use, dispose and it can descend to your heirs. Life estate. You own a property for a period of a lifetime or the owners or another designated person. This can be a bit confusing if you've not come across it. It's called a conventional life estate because it's created by an agreement of all the parties and the grantor, that is the owner and seller, transfers the life estate to another. Life estates are possible. Persons who hold title once a life estate is over. I'll explain this a little bit clearer in a few slides' time. Estate in reversion. After the life ends of the life estate tenant, then the property reverts to the original grantor. Remainder estate property goes to the remainder man. So I shouldn't use the word tenant, I should have said life estate owner. And what we have here is the life estate property rights. Enjoyment, exclusion, possession and control. You notice we're missing the D, which is disposition, because the life estate owner does not have the right to sell it or dispose of it. Let's have a quick look at an example. I'm at the bottom here and I own this particular house, fee simple, and I decide that I want to sell it or hand it over, deed it, convey it, doesn't matter which way what we call it, to my mother. Whilst she is alive, she can own it and she can have the enjoyment and the use of the property. She's got to pay the taxes, she's got to keep it insured, she mustn't allow waste to happen. And then when she dies, it would come back to me. So in this particular case, I give her a life estate, and then she has the life estate and the house goes to her. And then when she dies, then it comes back to me. Now, you must understand that this doesn't have to be a relative. It can be anybody. It can be Elvis Presley or anybody anywhere in the world. As whilst that person is alive, then Mom will be owning that property. In this case, I've placed it on the life of Mom. And then when she dies, the property will come back to me. Now, supposing, though, instead of it coming back to me, I said that when Mom dies, it'll go to my children. So they, in that particular case, would then take over the property. I would have no estate in it whatsoever. I'd have no interest or ownership. It'll go to my kids, and my kids are called or regarded as the remainder men. So they are the remainder after the life estate ends. A little bit tricky, and there's a lot more examples in the book we'll go through. There's also a legal life estate. The one we just saw there with when I decided to create a life estate for my mum is a conventional life estate. There's a legal life estate, which is created by an act of law. For instance, if a homestead is owned by one person and they die, or that person dies, their surviving spouse gets a legal life estate and any kids get the remainder estate. I'll explain that in class. If no kids, then the wife will get the fee simple ownership. And this is regardless of what is in the owner's will. If I have a house in my name only, I get married and I die, and the house is homesteaded, regardless of what is in my will, my wife will get the home as a life estate, and the kids will then get fee simple when she dies. If there are no kids, then she will get it fee simple. That's created by law. When we homestead a property, we have to show, first of all, that we have the right to homestead permanent principal residence. We have to go down to the assessor's office and appraiser's office and say we want to homestead a property, or I want to homestead a property. It must be shown that the property is showing a permanent residence to at least one person as of January the 1st that year. Protections and benefits. The protection of the family. In other words, the legal life estate protects the family. They cannot be forced out due to a forced sale from most debts other than home-specific debts. You also get a tax exemption of $50,000. You want to make the taxes a little bit cheaper if you've homesteaded a property. The size is restricted to 160 acres outside the city or half an acre within the city. You also have personal property protection of up to $1,000 in value. We also have non-freehold or leasehold estates. That is, if we don't own the property, then we're probably leasing it. Measured in calendar time, known duration, has an ending date, a lease. Not freehold because it does not exist for an indefinite period. So a non-freehold or less than freehold is what it's called. But there's no ownership interest, but you still have the right of enjoyment, use and possession for a period of time. We've got certain property rights. Once again, it's the same as a life estate: enjoyment, exclusion, possession and control, but no right to sell because you don't own or dispose of the property. Leasehold estates. We have three different types. The first one is a tenancy for years or estate for years. There is a specific starting and ending date, which is a designated period. This is typical of a lease that we would normally get if we're renting an apartment or so forth. Created by written lease agreement, establishes tenant interest in the property but does not convey legal title or ownership. We have a tenancy of will. This is basically month to month or week to week or whatever period you determine that you can carry on leasing without an actual fixed termination date on the agreement. So it's a tenancy without specific term. If either one of you wants to give notice, then it has to be on week to week 7 days, remember this, and month to month 15 days, remember that. If you don't have an agreement to be on week to week or month to month or so forth, and you don't have a lease agreement, then you are regarded as being a tenant or tenancy at sufferance. Tenant stays in possession of the property beyond an ending date and without the landlord's consent of one form or another. This is called a tenant holdover. And if you get written consent of the landlord, then it will become tenancy at will if it's for week to week or month to month, but also it will be a tenancy for years if you have a new lease agreement. Okay, I'm just leaving it now and we'll go on to part 3.